Codrina, hi there. So it's the final presentation, yours for today.
Codrina, ты будешь рассказывать про
Codrina,
Okay.
you will be telling about Xamarin.
Как давно ты
How long have you been working with the thing? I mean, how long have you been developing with Xamarin?
I started more or less 3 years ago, and then it became my day-to-day job.
То есть я правильно понимаю, что ты
So,
на работе используешь Xamarin.Forms?
You use Xamarin.Forms at work on every day. Are you going to migrate
Yeah.
that thing to MAUI after the MAUI release?
Yeah, I think we will surely migrate it.
Здорово. Теперь слово тебе.
Fine. Then, please, the floor is yours. Let's listen to your presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Codrina Merigo. I work as a senior software engineer for Fresenius Medical Care, Italy. I have also been recognized as a Microsoft virtual professional in the developer technologies with focus on Xamarin. So today I'm going to show you some insights about the cross-platform development with Xamarin.Forms and the new .NET MAUI. So let's start. What is exactly Xamarin? You might have heard about it if you are a C# or .NET developer. Xamarin is nothing less than an open source app platform. If you are already a .NET developer, you know that you can build everything with .NET. .NET is also one of the main reasons millions of developers are choosing it as a platform for their careers, as I have done, or big companies also invest in .NET for their business. The last version that came out, which is .NET 5, that has started a new journey of unifying the .NET platform, bringing together the new .NET Core with Xamarin. So, as I mentioned, Xamarin is an open app source platform. It's also a base framework that helps you access the native features of your phone. So, whether if you have an Android or iOS device, you may have already be very familiar with a different kind of application. The application you're going to create using Xamarin are using the so-called extensible markup language, known as XAML, that help you build dynamic mobile application. Also, XAML have been used for WPF. As regarding the development, you can use libraries for common patterns, such as the model view model. You can also find online different kind of libraries that help you simplify this kind of pattern. You can also find different kind of platform-specific libraries, like the one from Google, Apple, or Facebook, in order to help you add rich capabilities to your application. If you are already very familiar with .NET development, you should for sure use Visual Studio. Also, there have been a lot of improvements in order to help you with the editor that can give you something like syntax highlighting, the intense use of IntelliSense, and also some designer tools that help you build very nice pages. I also want to point out two very important things when we're speaking about Xamarin and then Xamarin.Forms. Is the fact that you have native and cross-platform integration, and also Xamarin assures you native performance. So you might have a lot of different kind of frameworks for cross-platform development, but they usually add a new layer that help you access the native API. But the apps you will be building using Xamarin have an access to the full spectrum of functionality that are directly exposed by the underlying platform. So if you want to access features like the fingerprint, the Bluetooth, NFC, or many more, you will go directly to the underlying system. Xamarin also integrates you with a lot of third-party libraries, but you can even bring your favorite native iOS and Android libraries to Xamarin. just by creating some simple binding project. When we speak about the native performance, they also leverage the platform-specific hardware acceleration. So anything you're developing will be compiled for native performance. They are using, inside the Xamarin.Forms, the so-called ahead-of-time compilation that help you reduce the startup time and increase the memory sharing and improve the overall performance. When we're speaking about mobile application, it's very important for them to be fast and easy to use for your user. So I think these two important native integration will help you achieving this speed. So just to recap briefly, when speaking about Xamarin, it's dedicated for developers that want to share code, test, and business logic across different platforms, and also write cross-platform application in C# using Visual Studio. So it's not need to create two different applications in native language like Swift or Java and so on. You only have this cross-platform solution. Xamarin.Forms, on the other hand, it's an extension of the Xamarin frameworks that help you also share the UI layout and design across platform. So once you're creating the solution inside Visual Studio, you'll have three different projects. You'll have the Share project, the Android, and the iOS. Inside the Share project, you'll create your share code and views. And if you want to add any specifics, you'll go to the different project. Next, I want to show you 4 different additional resources that will help you simplify the development with Xamarin.Forms. Those are Xamarin Essential, the so-called shell, platform-specific, and the material visual design. When you speak about Xamarin Essential, it's important sometimes to access the so-called native utilities, as I mentioned before. So if you want to check maybe the battery status or some system information, you want to invoke the file picker, with this library you can do it with very small lines of code. You will have a single cross-platform API that will work in any Xamarin.Forms application, regardless of how you are creating the user interface. When we speak about shell is mainly focused on the navigation. So when you have a mobile application, you can decide to do different kinds of navigation. Maybe the most common on iOS you can find is the so-called tab one, when you have all the menu items at the bottom of your screen. While in Android, you also have the so-called flyout menu that pops out from the left of your screen. With this shell component, you can create both this kind of animation very quickly. Also, you can use something like a URI-based navigation in order to go through your pages, very similar to the navigation you might have in some websites. Also, with using shell, you also benefit from an increased rendering speed and reduced memory, because you won't need to create everything from scratch, it's already there. Even if I spoke about Android and iOS application that might have different kind of behavior, maybe working with a designer or a user experience designer, you decide to create different kind of interfaces for your application. But they can also do small little things. So, for example, you want to have a blur effect on iOS, but not on Android. You can do this kind of tweaks by leveraging on the platform-specific functionality. So, by inside your code, if you wrote something like on platform equals Android, you can differentiate from an iOS application, very simple. The last additional resource I wanted to point out is something that became very famous in the last year. It's so-called the material visual design that was created by Google. And it's kind of a standard for different kind of application. Xamarin.Forms help you enable this kind of material vision design. So once you enable it, you'll have the same design across different platforms. This kind of design is very simple. It usually has these very simple cards. So each time you, for example, create a list or a page, this kind of design will already be applied. But if you are a developer and don't want to focus a lot on the user interface, there are also a lot of reusable user interface components from the top vendors like Syncfusion, Telerik, and so on. I know that I've been keeping mentioning Android and iOS application, but Xamarin.Forms is not only for mobile application. You can also create the Windows 10 Universal Windows Platform application also for television, like the Samsung Tizen, for macOS, GTK, or the old WPF application. Now I want to go deeper into the configuration of your developer environment. So here you can see if you are using Visual Studio, in order to create a Xamarin or Xamarin.Forms application, you need to enable the mobile development with .NET workload. Once you add it, you are ready to create your application on your Windows machine. On the other hand, if you are using Visual Studio for Mac, you need to install also the Android and iOS workload together with the new .NET Core. It's also important to mention that in order to build and test your iOS application, you need to have a Mac machine or to connect to a Mac machine in order to use the hardware possibilities from Apple. You can also connect directly from your Windows machine to your Mac if they are on the same network, and then you'll have a remote iOS simulator that will pop out on your Windows machine that will help you test your application. Of course, you can also test your application using different kinds of simulators or emulators for Android, but you can also attach with the USB your device directly to the computer if you are on Windows, or to the Mac if you want to test on an iOS device. Once you are ready with the setup of the Visual Studio, when you are creating a new Xamarin.Forms solution, you'll be prompted with 3 different templates that you can check, that you can choose for. So the first one that you can see here on the slide is a so-called flyout that will give you a very simple application with a flyout menu. You can also choose the second one, which is the tabbed one, that will give you the shell navigation with the tab at the bottom of the screen. Or you can, if you are brave enough, you can also choose the empty app with just a single initial screen. Once you are creating your application and you build it connecting maybe to your API, you create all the business logic, it's important to not forget about the testing. So as we are creating a .NET application relying on C#, you can use the actual unit test framework like NUnit, XUnit, or VS Test. But for mobile application, if you are working in some kind of industry where also the UI testing is important, the Xamarin.Forms offers you different kind of projects specifically created for UI testing that is called the Xamarin UI Test project. Once you create it, you'll also have this console-like environment application you can use in order to go through your application and test your user interface. If you are interested more in UI testing, you can find something on my GitHub. Now I think that we created our application, we also focused on the testing. For the last part of my presentation, I want to focus on the future of Xamarin.Forms. On build this year, the new multi-platform app UI have been announced, or .NET MAUI. .NET MAUI will give you a single project developer experience with modern development patterns, and also .NET MAUI will be nothing more, just an evolution of Xamarin.Forms. Xamarin.Forms have been created more than 6 years ago, and .NET MAUI will replace it next year. Also, .NET MAUI will give you all the cross-platform development that we saw for Xamarin.Forms. So you having Xamarin.Forms 3 different projects, the shared one, the Android, and the iOS. Everything will be simplified with .NET MAUI. .NET MAUI has been built with the developer productivity in mind. Also, with focus with all the cross-platform tooling that a developer might need. .NET MAUI also will simplify the project structure into a single project, as you can see from the slide, that will target different platforms with just one click. So if you want to have a very cross-platform application, you can also target desktop, emulators, simulators, or physical devices all connected to a machine with just a single click. All the images, fonts, or translation file, you'll add them also into the single project. Now, if you want to have different kind of fonts or images, you'll need to add them to the Android or the iOS project. As you know that Android devices have different renditions than the iOS one. With the .NET MAUI, you'll have everything in one place, and the framework itself will handle the platform. You will still have the access to the operating system natively, as we have now with Xamarin.Forms, and also the native API. You will have basically everything in just one place, and of course, .NET MAUI will still rely on model view model pattern, or the patterns you are using now, but also they will introduce the adoption on the model view update pattern that you may have find inside Blazor, and in this way you can create your pages rapidly by updating the UI for C#. So, as I was asked in the beginning, I think also in my team we will transition from Xamarin.Forms to .NET MAUI. And as you can see from this slide, .NET MAUI will be general available in more than a year, so in November 2021. I anyhow encourage you to create now your Xamarin.Forms application, because there will be a support in transitioning your actual application to the new framework in order to have this smooth transition. And yeah, I think that was all from my side. I will be happy to answer your question. I imagine there can be a lot of them. If you have any question, please just put them here, or I will be after this in the expert room. If you want to find some examples, you can find me at home.